This is why I go to the movies.
I don't know what to say.
When I went into If Beale Street Could Talk, I was super excited. I'm a huge fan of James Baldwin. There's a super great documentary from a couple years ago called I Am Not Your Negro. Talks about him, his place in 1960s society, and his kind of relationship to other big members of the civil rights movement in the 60s. And he's a prolific author, nonfiction writer, essayist, and one of his biggest works was If Beale Street Could Talk. And I was really curious to see how they would adapt this movie in 2018. And what I think I want to do is talk a little bit about this movie and about another film that came out in 2018 that's getting a lot more award discussion, and that's BlacKkKlansman. And they're diametrically opposed movies in a sense. There are a lot of similarities in that they're both period pieces. BlacKkKlansman set in the 70s, If Beale Street Could Talk in the late 60s, early 70s. The issue is BlacKkKlansman by Spike Lee is perceiving itself to be a recreation of a true story. And there's a lot of evidence and a lot of people talking about that time and history around the characters it's portraying as being inaccurate, and that there's a lot of things it gets wrong or it condenses or that it manipulates for dramatic effect. The other things are Spike Lee is sort of renowned for inserting his voice into a lot of projects and really making it very clear to the audience what his opinion is on things. And while I respect that, and I think it can be done to good effect, especially in documentary, you can also get people who occasionally go over the top, like Michael Moore, and I'd actually compare those two directors in that sense. What I think is powerful as an artist is to convey your voice through narrative in a way where it doesn't feel like you're necessarily being lectured. And If Beale Street Could Talk does that fantastically. It's a film about family, it's a film about hope through darkness, about surviving and persisting through challenges and tough times. And it's a film about oppression and struggle. And it's one that at no point kind of pulls back that curtain and makes you forget that you're watching a movie. And I talk about a lot of these elements when I discuss film and I review film. For instance, the fact that it uses voiceover to tremendous effect. Voiceover as a means to communicate not to the audience, but to give them a candid moment with a character saying how they're feeling, what they're experiencing, and where their life is going, to show them the fears and desires, and to fill in moments that provide more context to the things that you're going to see visually. At the end of the day, If Beale Street Could Talk is a love story between two characters. It's a young 19-year-old black girl and a young 22-year-old black man. And the film is told in a nonlinear structure. The man is sent to jail for a rape he may or may not have committed, and the girl is spending almost all of her time trying to prove his innocence and get him out. Interspliced between there are discussions about their family, discussions about their past, discussions about their place in society at that time. And it's incredibly informative and evocative of what that culture was like. And you see a lot of parallels with stories and concerns and fears and inequality that we have today. And it's a film that's resonant in that sense because it shows rather than telling. And that's the ultimate balance in filmmaking and storytelling. And it wouldn't be possible without a very methodical script and directing and cinematography that at no point feels superfluous or overly artsy, but is beautiful nonetheless. And that can only happen with patience. And if there's anything I can say about this film, it's that it's clearly a film that is crafted with patience and time and care and space to let all these actors really just own their roles and their parts. Many of them are very young actors and are very new to this, and they are fantastic. And Regina King has a star-making performance in this as the mother who's trying desperately to assist her soon-to-be, potentially, son-in-law. The fathers in this are fantastic. The families are just really interesting. And all of this is to say, what this film does that so many films fail to do is it has no wasted characters. And when you have no wasted characters, you have no wasted scenes. Everybody who appears, if they're there for 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, or 15 minutes, and there are characters who have only one scene who fit both of those two categories, they are resonant and memorable and interesting, and they impart a certain philosophy to the story that is memorable, and that by the end of it informs how you should feel about the journey that you have witnessed. If it sounds like I loved this movie, it's because I did. Quite frankly, I think it's one of the top 3 or 5 movies that I saw last year. I put it right up there with Roma or Shoplifters. I think it was a wonderful experience with a great score, a very well-paced and faithful adaptation of the book that I thought just told a great story that really transported me to a time and place, not unlike Roma. And it really reminds me of like why I appreciate some of like the obscure, like the SAG Awards where they talk about best ensemble, because great movies aren't made by 1 or 2 actors. It really takes a village, it takes a team. And every element of this, from set design to costuming to makeup to the score to the script to the directing, everything is just so cool. Do I have complaints about it? Sure. I think the second act drags a little bit. I think the ending kind of hits abruptly. And like I said, everything you've experienced and every character that you've heard from in this film really informs how you should be feeling as a result of the climax of this and how you should feel leaving the theater. But it does feel like it happens kind of suddenly. But those are the only things I can really think of to complain about. There were no wasted characters. It doesn't feel like there's any wasted scenes. Of the handful of experimental shots that they create, of the handful of moments that I feel are intimated in the book and made real and extrapolated or expounded upon in the film, everything just fits. It is a song with no wasted notes. Everything kind of complements each other, and there's a fantastic harmony between the setting of New York at this period, between the voices of the characters, and the interactions all feel so genuine. And quite frankly, at this period in film history, genuine interaction between people who feel like human beings, reactions that make sense, dialogue that flows, it's not as common as you might think. And when you see it, you really appreciate it. So for me, I cannot do anything other than recommend If Beale Street Could Talk. I think it's a film that really should be getting a lot more traction than it's getting. I think it is a travesty that it's not getting recognized at the Academy Awards. And I think it's probably going to get like that pity Oscar where you get one in a category nobody's really looking for. In this case, it'll probably be like adapted screenplay. But man, the Academy made a mistake, but you don't have to. Go out and see it for yourself. Check out If Beale Street Could Talk, and I can't think of many people who would be disappointed to do that. Probably one of my shorter reviews, probably more straightforward, but game gotta respect game.